Right folks, we're at LR Workshop. This is my mid-crossmember replacement, having just removed the rear floor, and the other video gives you access to this. All the bits that you've never seen for millennia. There is the question, to prod or not to prod? Ooh, you just can't resist, can you? Here we are, hoping that we're not going to find anything, well, holy under here. But actually this seemed to be quite solid. Anyway, in this video I'm not really going to do a how-to. This job is an absolute bugger. There is the factory way of doing this would be to take the rear tub off. So doing this in situ is a bit of a pain. It took me 5 hours, a lot of angle grinding. What I would say is get yourself a reciprocating saw. It's going to be necessary for this job. My crossmember had gone through last year. The year prior to this it looked okay. And all of a sudden just got holes. Just holes started appearing, so it had to happen. At the same time I realised that the C-posts had completely detached from the sill rails as well, so that was a job that I subsequently done. I've already published those videos. So how to tackle this job. The best way is probably just to chop it. What I was originally going to do is chop off these seat brackets and try and slide out from the front by taking the bolts off, but the bolts are completely corroded, so it didn't really work out that great that way. So this is how I started off. I can't believe I've never had a reciprocating saw before. These things are great. It just went through this like butter. It's a lot better. You can get access to places that you can't do with an angle grinder. If I was doing a rear crossmember, which I have done, I did it with an angle grinder. It's an absolute pain. I would definitely use one of these for that. It makes certain jobs a lot easier. This, however, turned out to be utterly fruitless. So we just jump forward a bit here. I trying to chop the wings off basically because I realised I couldn't. There wouldn't be a way that I'd be able to undo the bolts that effectively. It'd be easier to get access by chopping the ends of the crossmember off. In doing so, I found a big old hole here, and is that a mud trap or what? That's incredible. That must be from wading from over 10 years ago. But it doesn't find its way out. Access is pretty limited for these bolts. There's no way those nuts are coming off, so really had to find a way to chop them. This is the other side, which I filmed a bit more as I'd been chopping through. It gets a bit of a pain because you've got to keep moving this thing up and down to get access to chop different bits and different angles and to get access, and it's hard work on this one. This wiggling didn't really do much, so I had to give it another chop. But ultimately you're not going to get an angle grinder up into those bolts there. I found that cutting the bolt, it just wasn't working, so I'd slipped a reciprocating saw blade into try and cut the bolt underneath that cold chisel. It wasn't working, so what I decided to do was try and cut through, which is why I've cut the ends of the crossmember off, cut through into the body here and just try and slice through this and the bolts at the whole time, and then I can just pull the bolts out from underneath. This was proving particularly tricky in its own right because it's quite reinforced in there, and this is just full of mud, like a total mud trap. It didn't do the blades any good, so trying to cut through basically sand and mud at the same time as cutting through metal just wasn't really having a good effect. So here I'm just trying to lever up a bit of access so I can get the blade in and then try and cut through the bolts more directly. Trying to give it a good whack to see if any of it will structurally disintegrate under the power of cold chisel and lump hammer, but unfortunately not. And this is how far it got so far. You're trying to open it up, prise it open like you're trying to get into the Titanic to reveal all the secrets beneath. And there you can see the bolt that's hidden behind that reinforcing kind of channel in there. That's where I made the cut. And it's just trying to get the angle, because you've got bear in mind the reciprocating saw's got better access than an angle grinder, but it's still like a 2 foot long beast. You've got to try and manipulate in the access you've got. I did also use an angle grinder in here at certain points. There was access for that, and angle grinder works a bit quicker and is a bit more aggressive. And there we go, I'd finally chopped through. You see all the amount of metal had to get out of the way. And now I'm finally going to be able to free it off now that the bolts are cut through. Pull the bolts out from the underneath and I should be able to slide the cross member forward, which to this point, it's one of those jobs where it's just getting a bit fed up. It takes hours and hours and hours, and all you want to do is get the thing out to put the new one in. It's let me know in the comments how you've been dealing with this. They get to the point that you only start replacing them when they get so badly corroded, and it's going to be a real mission to try and get these out. Access here to lift up's a bit tricky because it's got the floor just above it. So you're trying to work with all the metal you've pushed up and bent up to get access to lift it a bit to get the bolt out, and it's But finally they're free, and really the way to do is just maneuver it as much as you can and yank it out. And here's all the bits and the mess that comes out of this. That's what's left of it. That's how it came out, essentially. The genuine ones comes with the brackets already attached, so you'd have to, what people have done is cut the cross member in half to then put it back in and weld it up on the vehicle. The YRM ones come with the seat brackets are bolted in, so you can actually attach those afterwards once you've slid it in from the front, which is the technique that is possible by having these bolt-on brackets. Time to clean up. And these are all the bolts that are left. What a lovely collection we've got there. Probably weigh that in and get a couple of pence. And the new one going back in. Right, the tricky bit here, because I've got rest of the world spec fuel pipes. They're basically the same as the TD Vive style, and getting this in was quite tricky actually. I had to bend up the front lip of the rear tub, and then you see then the fuel pipes go down through that groove in the mid-cross member. If you've got a pristine rear tub, then maybe it's not so favourable to do this, but I'd got to the point where I just wanted to fit this blooming thing back in the vehicle. I wasn't that worried. Get your old friend out, the #1 rubber mallet. In she goes! And there we have the juxtaposition of the old and the new. You can see how much I had to bend that lip up just to get the access with the fuel pipes. But the floor will bring that down. Now the problem here you have with the bolts is you can't put the bolt in from the top as per the factory. So I've put one in from underneath, and you've got quite limited access because you can't bring it as high as you want to with the standard factory bolts. So what I had to do, just in the interest of getting the job done, it's not pretty. I basically had to space out a load of washers underneath to prevent the end of the bolt hitting up under the floor there. At a later date I replaced this with a shorter bolt. Nice new bolts all go back on there. 8.8 rated. I didn't go for stainless. I sprayed it up with a bit of dinitrile here and there. Job's a good un. Yeah, I'd be interested to know in the comments what you've done, how you've coped with this epic job that is replacing your mid-cross member. This was the story of just how I went about doing mine. As I said, it took about 5 hours. It's a pig of a job. Do not underestimate the hurdles and obstacles you will have to overcome to do this job. This is really only a temporary solution because I want to fit a Puma rear tub, and then that'll be the different cross member. So this is really just to get it roadworthy and through its MOT for the time being. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye for now.